All right, let's unpack this. Today we're diving deep into a really fascinating, tiny book from 1922,
Yeah, yeah.
part of something called the 10-cent Pocket Series, and it's titled The Essence of Buddhism,
Mm.
compiled by Ernest M. Bowden.
Okay, the essence of Buddhism. And what's immediately interesting about this source, well, it's stated purpose, isn't it? Bowden is very clear up front.
He is.
This isn't meant to be, a comprehensive study or a full system. It's an anthology, basically, a collection of sentiments and maxims he handpicked from various Buddhist texts.
Right, he explicitly says he's not trying to lay out the whole philosophy. His goal is, well, different. He sees these passages as a potential moral force. He's looking for what he calls beautiful sentiments and lofty maxims to share.
And he has a very specific agenda woven through this compilation. You can see it pretty clearly. He's particularly focused on highlighting the profound emphasis on compassion for all living beings.
Including animals, yeah.
Yeah, especially animals. And he acknowledges, the sources he's drawing from are diverse, they span centuries, vary in authority. He even gives a heads up that translating terms like heaven or sin into English, well, it might not capture the full nuance of the original Buddhist concepts.
What really grabbed my attention, though, in the introduction is the context he gives for why he created this book. Bowden felt strongly that Western thought at the time, and he even specifically points to certain Christian perspectives, often overlooked or downplayed the ethical treatment of animals.
Right. He saw a gap there.
A big one. He saw this striking contrast in the Buddhist texts he was reading, which he found consistently emphasized a boundless compassion, something extending to every living thing.
That contrast is clearly a key motivator for him. It really seems to be driving the whole project. He seems to be presenting these Buddhist maxims as a kind of necessary moral counterpoint.
Exactly. So our mission in this deep dive is to go through the passages he chose, guided by his specific framing, and uncover the core insights about this ethical essence that he wanted to champion and share with the world back in 1922. Let's see what stands out.
Okay, sounds good. Let's start right where Bowden does, in his preface and his proem. He calls these maxims jewels of wisdom, compassion, and human brotherhood.
That really sets the tone, doesn't it?
It does. It tells you right away what kind of essence he's distilling. It's heavily focused on ethics, on relationships.
And he keeps coming back to that theme of compassion. He calls it an ever-pervading tenderness and a boundless compassion, which extended itself to all alike that live.
Yeah, though he also makes that somewhat critical observation, doesn't he? Saying this compassion was the one redeeming feature he found in many Buddhist writings, which he otherwise, well, somewhat dismissively describes as remarkably dull and silly as literature.
Right, a bit of a backhanded compliment there.
A bit. But his comparison regarding animal welfare is quite pointed. He contrasts what he sees as this common disregard for duties to animals in texts like Imitation of Christ, with what he describes as earnest exhortations recurring as a matter of course in Buddhist texts to show mercy to every living thing.
He even mentions what he perceives as a specific effort within Christian moral philosophy to explode the notion that animals have any right. He basically says this difference is a primary adequate reason for compiling a Buddhist anthology.
So that animal rights issue is really central for him.
Absolutely central.
Yeah.
It's interesting how he engages with the material, though.
Yeah.
He doesn't just uncritically accept everything he includes.
No, he doesn't.
He brings up the absolute injunction against taking life, which is a fundamental Buddhist principle, but then he offers his own interpretation. He questions whether it strictly means never taking life under any circumstances.
Yeah, he suggests that perhaps the spirit of the principle, extending sympathy, not causing pain, might be more important than the absolute letter of the law. He even hints that a painless taking of life could, maybe in rare cases, be seen as beneficence, though he stresses extending sympathy as the priority.
Right. He seems to be interpreting these ancient rules through his own, maybe early 20th century ethical lens, favoring compassion and avoiding pain over strict adherence to a literal command.
Exactly. He's curating these quotes not necessarily because he agrees with every single implication of the broader Buddhist system, but because they are striking or poetical, or, most importantly for him, because they convey a powerful moral teaching.
Okay, so let's dive into the maxims themselves and see what core principles emerge, especially through this lens Bowden provides. The most pervasive theme, clearly, is universal compassion and love.
It really begins with a foundational premise, doesn't it? All beings desire happiness, therefore to all extend your benevolence.
It's so simple, yet so profound. Base your actions on this shared fundamental desire.
And it links directly to what makes a person virtuous or, well, holy, as one quote puts it. A person is holy specifically because he has pity upon every living creature.
So holiness isn't some abstract state, it's an active state of compassionate engagement with the world.
Precisely. And there's that incredibly vivid analogy. He includes the mother protecting her only child, even risking her own life.
Right.
The teaching is to cultivate that same level of boundless friendly mind towards all beings. Imagine trying to apply that intensity of care universally.
It's a powerful call to expand your circle of concern dramatically. And you see versions of the golden rule here too, like hurt not others with that which pains yourself.
And the positive version. With pure thoughts and fullness of love, I will do towards others what I do for myself. These aren't unique to Buddhism, of course, but their central placement here is really significant.
And what Bowden really wanted to emphasize, that special focus on animals, it's underscored by specific passages he chose. There's one that explicitly mentions the poor, poor beasts of the forest, acknowledging their vulnerability, calling for pity.
Yes, and another statement declares, quite plainly, compassion for all creatures is the true religion.
And this compassion isn't just for the nice people or the ones like you. It extends even to those who have caused you harm. Good men melt with compassion even for one who has wrought them harm.
There's another quote about feeling affection for all beings, as if they were his only son, bringing back that intense personal analogy again.
Wow. This raises an important question for you listening. In a world where we often, let's be honest, ration our compassion based on connection or perceived worth or shared identity, what does this ancient call for universal compassion, extending even to insects or those who actively harm you, challenge about our modern ethical boundaries? It's a radical idea, isn't it?
It absolutely is. It forces you to think beyond easy empathy, maybe, and consider a much deeper, perhaps more challenging form of benevolence.
Yeah. And building on that idea of boundless love, the compilation also has a huge focus on overcoming negativity, particularly hatred and anger.
Right. The core principle here seems to be conquering negative states, not through fighting them directly, maybe, but through their positive counterparts. Overcome evil by good.
And when it comes to conflict, conquer your foe by force, and you increase his enmity. Conquer by love, and you reap no after sorrow.
That's powerful. Some of the maxims take this to a level that feels, well, almost superhuman. There's an instruction to forgive murderers, even to endure extreme physical harm, being cut one's body bit by bit,
Wow.
without allowing an angry thought to arise, or speaking an ill word.
That immediately tells you the real battleground is internal, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The fight against hatred and anger isn't primarily about changing the external situation or the other person. It's about mastering your own mind. Hatred ceases by love. This is an old rule.
It's an ancient truth being restated.
And avoiding sinfulness involves seeing danger in even the least of those things he should avoid. There's that powerful personal vow mentioned, may I never do, nor cause to be done, nor contemplate the doing of even the most trivial sin.
That's a high bar. And the consequences of failing this internal battle are described pretty starkly. You shouldn't wish harm to another out of anger.
No. The text paints a vivid picture of the angry mind. Its fire produces the fire of hell and consumes its possessor.
Oof. So overcoming anger with love is crucial. And a wise person never resents with passion the abuse of the foolish, just lets it go.
This intense focus on internal control, on overcoming negativity, it directly informs the next major theme, right action and moral conduct. The compilation presents what constitutes religion not primarily as ritual, but as lived ethical practice.
Exactly. According to one passage, religion consists in the least possible harm in doing abundance of good and the practice of pity, love, truth, and likewise purity of life. It's a definition centered entirely on action and inner state.
And this is explicitly contrasted with superstitious rites. The text says virtuous actions like kindness to servants, reverence for elders, and self-control towards living creatures, there it is again, are the true rites.
That's a significant reframing, putting practical ethics way above ceremony.
Definitely. And the core rule for conduct is presented so clearly. Scrupulously avoiding all wicked actions, reverently performing all virtuous ones, purifying his intention from all selfish ends. This is the doctrine of all the Buddhas.
That third part, purifying your intention, that seems particularly powerful. It suggests that why you do something is just as important as what you do.
Absolutely. It moves beyond just outward compliance, doesn't it? It goes to an ethics rooted in inner motive. Truthfulness is another key element discussed, saying, That which is right, not that which is unrighteous, that which is pleasing, not that which is unpleasing, that which is true, not that which is false, avoiding hypocrisy, dissimulation.
Honesty extends to actions too, abstaining from theft, even of a blade of grass, he notes, and from bribery, cheating, fraud.
Yeah, and there's that very strong statement about cutting off a hand rather than taking what isn't yours. It really highlights the severity with which theft is viewed.
It does. Interpersonal conduct is also detailed. Speaking kindly and softly, courtesy being the best ornament.
And the text asks how one should minister to friends. By liberality, courtesy, benevolence, and by doing to them as he would be done by. There's that golden rule again, applied to friendship.
Familial duties are included too, cherishing a wife's loyalty, respecting the aged, loving the young. Family love and friendship are seen as these essential bonding forces in the world.
And none of this is presented as easy. Perseverance is essential. Cultivate a fixed and firm determination and vow that what they once undertake, they will never give up.
Stick with it.
Exactly. It's even presented as better to die in righteousness or while battling a negative temper than to live defeated or transgressing your duty.
Wow. So this isn't a passive philosophy at all. It calls for active goodness. Earnestly practice every good work, always doing good to those around you. Store up good works daily. It's about building virtue through consistent action.
And all these external actions, these conduct principles, they lead right back to that vital theme of inner cultivation and self-mastery. They're only really possible with a disciplined internal life.
Watch your thoughts. Control your tongue. Have a strict control over your passions. The mind is seen as absolutely foundational. If your thoughts are directed correctly, happiness will follow. Like a shadow, one quote says.
And negative thoughts, angry, malicious, sinful ones, they're seen as things that arise, sure, but they must be immediately dealt with. You have to, as the text says, remove it, destroys it. He makes it not to be as soon as they appear.
So constant vigilance over the mind.
Relentless self-control, unselfishness, mastering the art of giving up the ego, the attachments.
The greatest conqueror, according to the text, isn't the one who defeats armies, but he who conquers himself. That's the ultimate victory.
Which connects to the need to root out the love of self. Making an end of selfishness is presented as the direct path to happiness.
And the process of self-examination, looking inwards, is even described as painful. It acknowledges how difficult it is to see one's own faults, compared to how easily we spot the faults of others.
So true. And inner strength is needed for patience under hardship, enduring cold and heat, hunger and thirst, bodily sufferings under pains however sharp. Cultivating equanimity, that inner balance, is presented as key to navigating life's inevitable difficulties.
This emphasis on the inner battle, on self-mastery as the highest form of conquest, it feels particularly relevant today, doesn't it? In a world often so focused on external achievement or comfort.
It's a powerful redirection of energy inwards, yeah.
And this inner discipline, it naturally enables generosity, which is another key theme Bowden highlights.
Right. Giving is encouraged. Give to him that asketh, even though it be but a little. There's this idea of delighting in giving so far as he is able.
But the text defines true charity quite carefully. It has to be free from self-interest or thought of getting more.
No strings attached.
None. Done out of mercy, not a desire for personal gain or return. Giving for the benefit of men or the good of the country is highlighted as particularly virtuous.
And this contrasts sharply with, just accumulating worldly wealth. The real treasure is described as that which is laid up through charity and piety, temperance and self-control.
The inner virtues.
Exactly. This treasure is secure, and significantly, it's carried beyond life. Material wealth is fleeting. This internal treasure is permanent, providing security even beyond death.
Covetous desire, wanting more and more stuff, is identified as the greatest source of sorrow.
And conversely, encouraging small desire isn't about deprivation for its own sake, but maybe about freeing up resources, internal and external, to give to those who actually need it.
That makes sense. The compilation also touches on consequences and the nature of reality, often framing them as these fundamental truths that underpin the whole ethical system.
Yeah, like the idea that actions have results. Deeds follow you like shadows. As men sow, thus shall they reap.
The principle of karmic consequence, not necessarily preordained destiny, but the natural unfolding of cause and effect based on our actions and intentions.
And evil thoughts and words, the text says, ultimately hurt yourself. It comes back to you.
Doing wrong brings anxiety and remorse, while doing well brings gladness and peaceful rest. There's this inherent system of accountability built right into reality itself.
And there's a strong emphasis on internal accountability, too. The self is described as a sharp-sighted witness to your own bad actions, meaning no such thing as secrecy and wrongdoing. Even if you hide it from other people, from spirits or gods, your sin isn't hidden from yourself. Your own consciousness is the inescapable judge.
It's quite a thought.
It is. Death and decay are presented as simply terms of the world. The wise don't grieve over them because they understand this natural process.
Accept it.
Right. Someone who clings to righteousness should not fear death, and the ultimate aim is to reach a state where separation cannot come. Vice is seen as mean, virtue as great and grand. Unrighteous actions are just contemptible.
So this understanding of cause and effect, internal accountability, and the impermanence of life provides a powerful motivation for living virtuously, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It grounds the ethics in a view of how things actually are.
Okay, let's shift then to how these principles play out in community and relationships. There's specific guidance there, too.
There is. Reverence, the text says, is due to righteous conduct, not merely name or family status.
That challenges hierarchies based on birthright or social standing right there.
Definitely. And the qualities of liberality, courtesy, benevolence, unselfishness are called the linchpin of the world.
The linchpin.
Yeah, essential for holding things together, like the pin holds a chariot wheel. Without these virtues in individuals, society risks falling apart.
That's a great metaphor. The value of friendship is also outlined clearly. A true friend warns when you're going wrong.
Constructively.
Encourages you when you're doing well, and assists in difficulty or danger. True friends are loyal, even willing to lay down their life, one passage suggests.
Friendship means being knit together as friends, dwelling in mutual love. And that powerful, simple statement, trust is the best relationship.
Simple and true. The text also speaks of the ideal of living without cruelty among the cruel and finding agreement with all men. That suggests a path of maintaining your own virtue and peace, even in really challenging environments.
Yeah, how do you navigate that? It also includes joining in the lamentations and rejoicing of others, sharing sorrow to make it more endurable, empathy in action.
These aren't just abstract ideals then. They're specific guidelines for how to interact with others, for building connection and alleviating suffering within a community.
Exactly. And speaking of community, the compilation offers various descriptions of the ideal person, or Brahmin, defined not by caste or social status, but entirely by these ethical qualities and actions.
Right. One is a Brahmin by deeds, not birth. The ideal person hurts no living creatures, whether weak or strong.
They are entirely divested of sin, pure and spotless. They patiently endure hardship, reproaches, or abuse, even if they don't deserve it.
This person seeks to be of use to other beings, especially maybe as a spiritual teacher, and lives for the good of mankind, identified with all beings. It's a picture of someone whose life is really dedicated to the welfare of others.
They're described with such a wealth of virtues. Humble, large and gracious deeds, abundant in charity, modest, full of pity, tender to all life.
Protected by heaven, loved by men, upright, conscientious, soft-spoken, gentle, not proud, full of truth, compassion, mercy, long-suffering, one who aims to curb the tongue and benefit the world.
Someone who delights in uprightness and makes virtue their absolute first aim, an example for all the earth. One who doesn't repeat gossip to cause quarrels.
Oh, that's a practical one.
Isn't it? And is kind and compassionate to the sick and magnifies the gifts given to deserving people rather than magnifying themselves.
It's a really comprehensive portrait, isn't it? Of an ethically perfected individual, measured not by power or wealth, but by their internal state and their consistent compassionate actions towards everyone else.
It truly is. Finally, let's look at inclusivity, which is another point highlighted in the compilation.
Okay. The text states that in this mode of salvation, there are no distinctions of rich and poor, male and female, people and priests. All are equally able to reach the blissful state, the highest attainment.
That's quite radical for the times many of these texts originated from. Even the most unworthy who seeks for salvation is not to be forbidden. There's this embrace of everyone's potential for virtue and salvation.
Look with friendship on the evil and on the good.
Wow. And this inclusive approach extends even to those with different beliefs. When others speak against one's own beliefs, the response shouldn't be anger or putting them down.
What should it be?
Instead, it involves rendering honor to other sects for whatever cause honor is due, finding common ground, and using righteous dealing to appease opponents.
So dialogue and respect, not conflict.
Seems so. The call is to go forth to convert others, filled with compassion to rescue and receive. But it sounds like this is framed within a context of peaceful interaction, respect for others, and finding agreement, not, conflict or forced conversion.
So pulling all these threads together,
Mm-hmm.
what is the overwhelming message this compilation presents as the essence of this philosophy, at least through Bowden's eyes?
Well, based on his selection, it's just this powerful and repeated call for universal compassion and love that extends to every single living being. No exceptions.
Right.
It's about ethical conduct that isn't just about following rules, but is rooted in a really fierce, disciplined inner life, mastering your own mind, overcoming negativity, eradicating
And
selfishness.
understanding consequences.
Yes, understanding that our actions have inevitable consequences, both externally and internally, and that the true measure of a person lies in their virtue, their inner state, and their selfless service to others.
And the value of this specific compilation, even as this short, accessible book published over 100 years ago, is precisely how it concentrates these powerful ethical ideas. By pulling these specific quotes, organizing them thematically, it offers a focused, compelling picture of a moral philosophy centered on boundless kindness and rigorous self-mastery. It's a distillation of core principles for living a virtuous life, presented as practical, universally applicable guides.
Yeah, it provides a kind of concentrated dose of ethical wisdom that, while drawn from ancient texts, feels remarkably relevant even now.
It really does. So as we wrap up this deep dive, maybe consider this provocative thought. Given the strong and repeated emphasis in these selected texts on profound compassion for all living creatures, including animals, even the smallest insects.
An emphasis that clearly motivated Bowden himself.
Exactly, the reason he made the book. What does this suggest about the connection between our own ethical development as humans and how we treat the non-human world around us? What might it truly mean in practice today to live out that principle of living without cruelty among the cruel?
That's definitely something worth reflecting on long after our conversation ends.